Good morning. Welcome to the Rangers Roost. This is a weekly show where we sit down and start our week by talking about Jump Rangers, talking about geek culture, talking about the things that are happening in life, and checking in. Um, the idea behind this show is that it's going to be a chat. Typically, it's either just myself and my wife, but we've had people in the past check in and talk about the topic of the day. Today on social media, I advertised that the talk of the day was going to be about our responsibilities as content creators for children. Last week we had a discussion about what culture is and how it works and how to build it effectively and what it does for society when we do that. And it seemed like kind of a natural follow up to discuss where where children fit into that process and how I see them as audience members, because obviously children don't have the legal right to represent themselves. Um, they're not officially people in the eyes of most governments. And, you know, that reality definitely affects how lots of parents see their children's relationship with the culture around them. Um, I think that a lot of children's entertainment has dealt with that dichotomy by kind of skirting accountability and letting the audience decide what's important, letting the audience decide what people should be watching so that nobody has to sort of take ownership of the idea that this is what we're providing to our children. Nobody has to step in and say, okay, this is what I did. This is what this is what we're bringing to the table, and this is why we think it's good for kids. If we just step back and kind of, I forget what the word is, but that corporate boardroom where you have a bunch of people, you know what I'm saying, a panel of consumers that sit down and analyze to the best of their abilities using no professional skill sets what makes something good, so that, you know what I'm talking, focus group everything, right? And if we just pull everything, and if we sort of let the audience guide us, then nobody has to be accountable for making decisions involving children, which is scary, both legally and ethically. Um, Personally, I don't think the way out of that conundrum is to avoid the decisions and sort of pass them off onto algorithms and an understanding of what adults think is good for kids. I think that every aspect of society requires leadership. And if you're going to create stories that are going to be consumed by children, you have to be willing to provide that leadership. You have to be willing to take that accountability. I turn that sound off. That's me just getting on stream, so I can see if there's anybody in chat. So that's kind of the first pillar of the ethics behind Jump Rangers. So if I'm providing leadership and I'm providing what I think is best in terms of family entertainment, who am I really working for at that point? Am I working for the parents? Am I working for the kids? The parents are spending the money, you know, and that's always going to be the argument. It's my money. I should have total say over what's appropriate for my children or not. And you do, absolutely. And at the same time, a lot of parents don't invest the time to really understand the media that their kids are interacting with. They just see things around and have reactions to it and sort of make up their minds based on what people are saying in the media as opposed to looking at how their kids are engaging the content and what they're getting out of it, what they're not getting out of it, and deciding if that's a complete breakfast or not, right? So, yes, parents have complete control. They very rarely exercise that control, and to a large degree, I think they expect content creators to exercise that control on their behalf and to provide things to their children that they believe are going to mesh with their adult ethics, and then they get upset when they find out that's not the case. I work first and foremost for the kids, I think. And in doing so, I look at the experience that kids are having and I ask myself if that's a complete breakfast. If the kids are getting everything they need to learn and grow, if they're getting everything they need to communicate complex ideas with one another, if the experiences that they're having in common with one another are empowering them to work together to accomplish goals and to shape the future of our civilization. If these kids are building social foundations with one another that are going to serve them in their efforts to fulfill their potential. And there's a few areas where I think society is definitely falling short. When it comes to toys and when it comes to physical play, I think that in the last 2 or 3 decades, we've done a very poor job of providing kids with toys and tools that allow them to create their own stories and explore their own imagination. I think that we've done a focus group job on the whole situation, and we've essentially created a body of toys that allow kids to quote unquote engage the content. You know what I mean? We have a cartoon and we want kids to be branding that cartoon for us. So we provide them with things that are going to allow them to show their interest and express their interest in the stories that we're telling. And we're giving them dolls and things, but those dolls and things are built to reenact moments that have already been created in other stories. They're designed to sort of teach kids how to recreate the things that we've already created. We're not providing them with a sandbox in the sense that we're not giving them the opportunity to go ahead and recontextualize. You understand? What do I mean by recontextualize? I'm saying that as you get deeper and deeper into most of the toy lines today, let's say you buy a doll for a cartoon that's on the internet or that's on a streaming network, and then you buy a playset. That playset is designed to narrow the focus of what you're doing with the doll. Right? Now you're in the bedroom. And you can do the things that this character does in their bedroom. And the reason we're selling you the bedroom is because the bedroom is a primary location in the cartoon. So now you can act out many of your favorite scenes from the bedroom. And now you're in the bedroom. What are we doing to get this kid out of the house? What are we doing to allow this child to imagine the things that the cartoon has not yet imagined? And our culture doesn't want that kind of expression because that's a harder sell. It's not rebranding. It's not hammering down the imagery and the iconography that's already been created around a certain property. It's allowing kids to create a bigger world than the one that we've created. That's the core value of Jump Rangers. And I think that that kind of play is vital to innovation in society. I think if we're going to empower our kids, not just to innovate themselves, but to respect innovation when they see it, then we need to give them a foundation for that kind of communication and understanding. We need to give them something that they have in common so that when they see something like that, they go, oh, this is what that is. And this is what this person's doing. Especially if they have the ability to express that to one another using cultural memes that they share. So for me, Jump Rangers is about providing kids with the opportunity to innovate and create their own stories. And to the extent that we have stories that are already there, those stories take place in the universe and they provide strong examples of what is possible. And then they provide a narrative, and there's an overarching kind of meta plot to Jump Rangers, not just as a tabletop role playing game, but I've already written the rough draft of the first novel, and there's going to be television shows, and there's going to be, you know, probably feature films at some point. And the characters that come out of that are written to be examples of what Jump Rangers are capable of. They're not the heroes of the universe, they're the heroes of the story that they're in. But, you know, if you've got a Jump Rangers action figure, or if you're playing the role playing game, you're the hero of the story that you're in. And teaching kids how to do that is something I think we've lost really since the 80s. You know, part of the advantage of having a toy line as expansive as G.I. Joe was that you could find yourself in it, potentially. I think, you know, that's probably the only reason they started creating black G.I. Joe action figures at that point in history, or native G.I. Joe action figures. And as backwards and racist as those characterizations were, um, it was an important step that we never moved on from. We never took the next step. We made toy lines smaller. We made things more contained. We built more intellectual property around small groups of characters. I don't think that's as helpful for the development of kids. And taking accountability for that is part of why I was inspired to write Jump Rangers in the first place. Anyway, at the end of the day, the answer to the question, I think, is we are responsible as content creators for children to provide the social environment and the social context that we think is going to support children in the development of themselves. And I think there's a lot of parents out there who appreciate that. And I think there's a lot of parents out there who might feel a little bit threatened by the idea that their kid is developing themselves. But they are. And the more we support them in that endeavor as a society, the more we're going to win them over as friends and allies. And the more our society will be united as a result. In fact, it's maybe possible that the reason all children grow up to kind of reject the ethics of previous generations. The reason why all kids grow up to be rebels on some level might just be that our society, our civilization isn't built to support kids in their own self development as opposed to telling them how to become the adults that we think they should be. I think that's it. I think that's everything I have to say today. Somebody's watching. Could be Ippy Looney. Could be Steve Kane. Could be somebody else. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. If you like the conversation that we're having here, please be sure to share it. Today, at 2:30 p.m. Pacific time, we have the first story session and the continuation of um, the session 0 from last week on a brand new Jump Rangers game called The Rookies, starring Liz Ransdell and Buster the Destroyer of Star Citizen fame. Liz, if anybody's not aware, is a writer who is probably most popular right now on Blue Sky for the webcomic My Boyfriend is a Shark. And I think it's going to be a blast. We had a lot of fun last week making characters. You can catch up on that session on Twitch still for another couple of hours, and it'll be on YouTube at youtube.com/@JumpRangers. Come on by, check out the stream. Don't be a stranger, Ranger.